All right, welcome back, riders, and hello, YouTube. Um, Yesterday was the first day I've posted anything on YouTube. I've stayed away from it just because of all the censorship, and just figured my videos would be removed um, quite frequently, and just didn't want to deal with all the hassle. But regardless of how things are, YouTube is the biggest platform, and it does seem like more material is being allowed on here. Now, we could talk about what the reason for that is, but I'm going to use it as long as they're going to allow it. So, I just wanted to make this video to kind of introduce myself to this platform. I do have quite a few videos over on BitChute at the Cloud Rider podcast and also Rumble under the same name. Now, my Rumble videos, the only ones I have over there are my interviews with Pastor Eli James. There's quite a few on there. He, talks about the Anglo-Israel message. Um, I don't like to refer to myself as a Christian identity. I think that name has been trashed, and a lot of the representatives um, pushing that message, I think, do our people a disservice with um, how they approach it. And I just typically don't believe a lot of what they believe. You got a lot of them that will um, make claims that only white people are going to be saved and everybody else is going to be destroyed. I do not believe that. That seems ridiculous. And it just doesn't seem like something our Father would do. Why would you create something just to destroy? It just doesn't make any sense. And, people, this ministry and podcast is for our people. That's what I'm interested in. I'm trying to, share information of my journey because this is what it is. I don't have all the answers, but this is my personal journey to get closer to our Father. And that's something that is personal, but I'm sharing it with others. Nobody else can, make this walk for you. You know, the the walkway is narrow and nobody can hold your hand. They can point you in the right direction. And that's what I hope this ministry does. And I hope it opens your eyes a little bit to just the evil in this world and how it's being directed at our people and our countries and at Jesus Christ. So, this video, I just wanted to, share a little bit about myself and let you know where I'm coming from. And I heard something on a video I was watching the other day from, oh, his name's like Orwell or Ariel. He's the leader of the Return to the Land movement. And he made a comment about how he was kind of disgusted that our people snipe at each other and we attack each other, which we do. Our egos get in the way. And if somebody disagrees with you just a little bit, they're not saved, or they're, controlled opposition, or they're evil, blah blah blah. And we got to stop doing that. There isn't, in the worldwide population, there isn't that many of us. So we need to come together, and you know whether you believe in our Father or not, I can stand with you as long as you're not disrespecting and attacking Jesus Christ. I can get past a lot of things, but as soon as you start attacking um, Jesus or our Father, I can't be a part of that. So And personally, most of the attacks I've received since I've been doing these for, oh, I don't know, 2 to 3 years, most of my attacks that I get are from, supposed other whites. And it's sad. So, I want to share what I'm about, and I want this ministry and podcast to be a community that we could help each other with, because that's what our people are all about. We got to stick together and we got to help each other. So, to get going, I was raised Catholic. Um, it wasn't very important. It was important, more of um, a cultural identity, I guess, for our family. But especially with the Catholics, I never saw anybody open their Bibles or really even talk about it very much outside of church, or outside of getting grilled on what the sermon was to make sure that you went to church. It wasn't that important. Now on my father's side, um, my grandma and grandpa were two of the best people and Christians I've ever come in contact with. And talking to Pastor Charles yesterday, earlier this week, it was kind of like going back in time. Pastor Charles reminds me so much of my grandfather, um, and I regret a lot of not using the time I had with them correctly, because being raised as a Catholic, you're kind of trained to view all other Christianity as um, like fake or wrong, or almost a cult. That's at least how it was um, portrayed to me. I still remember to this day in fourth grade, worrying about my grandparents because they weren't Catholic, and asking one of the monsignors at the church if they were going to hell. And he told me yes, and it was my job to help them. Like, what a screwed up thing to say to a fourth grader. So, since I didn't have anybody developing a relationship with God, really helping me, and not really being very important to that side of the family, I viewed, there was a lot of drinking and um, like that party atmosphere on that side of the family. And then my grandparents were, they were always doing something, whether it was working outside, or, I have that image of my grandfather sitting next to the window studying his Bible because he taught a Bible study. And they weren't watching TV, they didn't drink, they spent time together, and they went to church together. And having that other side of the family where, it fit more to what you were watching on TV. That was the fun side of the family. And then my grandma and grandpa were like, I almost viewed them as like prudes or boring. And I wish so bad I could go back and talk to them more about our Father, and the right way of living, because there's more to life than you know just living, than breathing. You have to live correctly. And it saddens me that I didn't properly use those very important people correctly. And since I did not have any foundation, I faded away from our Father. After my My grandfather died of pancreatic cancer when I was um, 18. And after that, that was basically it for God. It kind of, he went on the back burner. A few years later, I fell into, the Bill Maher's, the Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, Sam Harris, all of these people that, um, like the Four Horsemen or um, the atheism movement. It's also connections to Jeffrey Epstein funding, but you know, like Christopher Hitchens, he was Jewish. These movements were pushed by Jews. Bill Maher, he did the Religious video. Um, he even had like the Jew cameraman, and never addressed Judaism. He just attacks Christianity and Islam. But I never saw that because we are blinded to that through the programming. We're taught that these people, the chosen race, are, they're just victims and they're the good people in the world. Until, which I believe that this is our Father that opens your eyes. But until I had my eyes open, that's how I never saw this weirdness of, not like they weren't propping them up, but they just never spoke about it. And that's how the Jewish world Jewry wants it. They just don't want you thinking about it. They want you to glance at them, assume that they're just like you, except they believe in the Old Testament, and then move on with your life. And that's not the case. So for the next, till I was 33, actually, um, I was an atheist and would fight with people any chance I got to do it. And um, I lost my mother in 2015, lost her to cancer. And shortly after that, my first marriage started to tank. And I decided to move towards self-medicating. So I got hooked on opiates. So the last 2 years of my marriage, it was basically done. I couldn't accept it, so I just medicated myself as much as possible. And the last 6 months, I started to have experiences that, I did not believe in the spiritual anymore. I just didn't believe in anything. And started to have some experiences that I shrugged off. Now, when I think back on it, it gives me chills. And I don't understand how I could be that oblivious to what was going on. But the first experience I had, I can remember let me step back. One of the last things I prayed about. So be very careful of what you ask for from God, because he might just oblige. I can remember watching the exorcism of Emily Rose. And there's a scene in there where she says, the priest is reading the letter, and it basically, like paraphrasing, but it basically says, she says something like, if I show the world the devil, like, how are they going to deny God? And it went something like that. And I can remember thinking to myself, like, man, wouldn't it be amazing to have some sort of experience like that to where you just knew if God was real or not. So fast forward, what was that, 15 years or whatever. I was going to bed one night, stood up, shut my TV, and we had a pretty big size TV. It was like 60, 65 inches. And I shut the TV off and looked into the black screen, and there were dark cloaked figures kind of standing around me in a half circle. I remember I jumped and I flipped on the TV real fast, and then I shut it off again. There was nothing there. And I, just went, oh, it must be the drugs. Well, I kept seeing these shadow things for the next few months, and it all came to a head, and I was had a near death experience and was in the hospital for 10 days. But when I woke up, um, the next day in the hospital, I had no. I will do an episode and get more into what exactly happened that night. But when I woke up in the hospital, I I didn't have any need for these drugs anymore. And this this went from, if I went 4 or 5 hours, I was already starting to feel sick, and it was just consuming my mind. And I didn't have those desires anymore. I did have some sort of experience during that near death experience, and it didn't automatically lead me to Jesus Christ. But what it did do, it opened my eyes to, like, there's something else after this. So from that was right at the end. That was November of 2019. So I started paying attention and looking for answers. And I don't know how this is going to um, come off to you guys. I went down the biblical earth route. And that's something I studied very hard for the next couple of years. And the what I found proved to me that this place is a creation. This was our Father, and I believe what the Bible says about it. And the more and more you see what's going on with NASA and what they're going to be doing with AI, it comes off to me as just completely fake. It's a money grab, and I believe NASA is, a government propaganda office, basically. They are to promote lies. And, if this rubs you the wrong way, um I would go to Proverbs 18:13 and listen to both matters. Go to prayer and make a judgment then. Don't make snap judgments. One thing I've tried to read and try to understand more and more is just the science of, this propaganda that they're pushing on us. The MK Ultra, MK often, that type of research that's been done for, however long they've been doing it. And we know that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. So these things, they know us better than we know ourselves, and they know what buttons to push and what will work on a population. And that way of thinking has just got more and more scientific through um, through these elite members of society that have infiltrated our governments, infiltrated our churches, and have, programmed us through, media, whether it was the radio, movies, books, they all work together. And they all work with the intelligence agencies, which I believe the intelligence agencies of all the countries are basically the police force of the elites. They all work together. World War II, what was lost there was not Germany losing, was basically Christianity and our freedom. What won was communism. And if you don't believe that, just look at the world since World War II. If democracy and freedom won, why has the world shifted to the way it's shifted now? They've um, they've captured all of our institutions, and this is a very dangerous time for us to have our head in the sand. And unfortunately, most of our people, that's their default mode. Is when things get scary, they just stick their head in the sand and go back to their distractions. And men that would have used to put a stop to this, they are completely consumed by sports, pornography, materialism, and this little black screen. That's what consumes everybody now. And sorry, I lost recording there for a second. Yeah, but everybody's consumed by these little black screens. And it's hard to even have real conversations with anybody anymore. They're just so empty and, mind numbing basically, because nobody wants to talk about anything real. It's just distraction, distraction, distraction. And I understand like hobbies, throwing ourselves into our kids' sports and stuff like that. I understand these things are important. But just like I also feel that, a movie night or game nights with the family are important. It's not a good idea when there's a fire upstairs. And we need to view our country like that. Like I want the things that, for us to be able to do the things that bring us joy, but we can't be doing that while our country burns. There's not going to be anything left. And then we're going to have to look at our children and tell them, well, we were sitting on the couch or we were concentrating on Little League while all this was going on. It's pathetic. And it's not what we are called to do by our Father. This ministry, I want to be very clear, is not about hate or supremacy. How generally this message is, that's how it's framed, is that you're a supremacist, or you're a hater. No, we need to come at it from love. I love our people. I love our children. I love our country. I want things to be better, and we're allowed to have a place of our own. That does not make you evil. That does not make you hateful. All races should fight for their race. and we are commanded to stay separate, and we're commanded to be a light to the nations, not a dark, black hole. But we do that by living a life for others to, for it to be an example to others. The other races could look at us and then take what we're doing back to their race and strengthen them. We don't have to come at it from hate. That's not going to get us anywhere. I don't know what the rules are for what I can say on YouTube, but yelling the N word or other slurs does not do our people any favors. We're attacking each other because they don't believe exactly like you do. That doesn't help anything. And one thing I came across from talking to Pastor Charles yesterday, I don't know, it strengthened me to take this stuff more seriously. On the in today's world, just talking about truth and stuff is boring to people. So in a lot of my other videos, if you go there, like I'm trying to be, I guess, more entertaining. But after speaking to Pastor Charles, I don't know, it's just made me reconsider how I'm presenting myself, and that I need to do a better job if my goal is to push the message of Jesus Christ and help our people. So hopefully that's what um, these future videos will do. But so to get back on my story, the biblical earth, flat earth was introduced, and I was studying that really hard, along with just some of the medical stuff had started to pop up, obviously, since it was 2020. And I started to see just how the COVID pandemic was just basically a military operation. And that was when I was introduced to William Cameron's Covenant People book. And like I said yesterday with Pastor Charles, it changed my life completely. I'd never heard that message, and something just, it created a fire inside me. Like almost like you were like, that's it. Like had brought together everything that was going on. Because I couldn't figure out like why America and Europe and Australia and Canada, these white countries, were attacking their own citizens. We're actively replacing them. And when you realize it's world Jewry that controls all of these countries now, and when you realize who the Jews actually are, being the Edomite Canaanites, it makes perfect sense of why they're trying to destroy God's people. If God's people aren't here, whether or not this is how they think, if God's people aren't here, who's he coming back to save? So, once I realized that, it really opened the Bible and opened understanding for the danger that we're actually in right now. And I said it yesterday with Pastor Charles. It's, you want to scream this message from the rooftop. You don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. You've been given this truth and you're trying to warn people. And yet the reaction from, the normal individual is that you're a hateful, racist, anti-Semite. And, that sucks. I never wanted to be viewed as a hateful person or, a bigot or anything like that, especially with the programming we receive growing up. That's the most evil thing you could be. But eventually you get past that and you understand that you understand why Jesus said we were going to be hated for his name. Because when you're actually preaching truth from our Savior, people hate you. And this is why community and us sticking together is so important, because it will allow us to strengthen each other. So when the world's crashing down on us, at least we can lean on each other. And I thank God every single day for my wife now. I met her right at the start of this journey, and she, you know, she was in the same boat I was in. She let the world get to her, and it corrupted both of us. But when God brought us together, we were able to strengthen each other. We saw God working in our lives at that moment. Um, we both wanted a daughter, and leading up to that, we kept seeing. See, I do believe in signs. Like I believe what signs are put there for is to is God to let you from God to let you know that you're on the right path. That's what I believe. And we both kept seeing this um 1111 going around, and there, you could get 1,000 different things that say that's evil or that you don't let them take things of God. God created everything. Most of everything was his first. And what the devil likes to do is grab things and pervert it and flip it around. So we kept seeing this, and we eventually found out we were pregnant, and that's when I from that moment on, that's when I hit the floor. I was on my knees and I asked for forgiveness, and I gave my life over to Jesus. And that was in 2022. And found out that the due date was 11/11. Unfortunately, we weren't as far along with our knowledge on the medical system and home birthing, and I wish I could go back and we go that route. But unfortunately, they wouldn't allow us to have her on 11/11. We had to have her a week prior. So, but um, hang on one sec. I think my daughter might be up. Okay, I apologize for that. My daughter is up, so I'm gonna have to cut this video short. But basically, we had her on 11/4, but during the pregnancy, um, my wife had some complications, and we were worried, obviously, for the health of our daughter. and we went to the hospital at one point to get her checked out. And as we were going, I prayed to our Father, just, give me something that, um, so I know that everything's going to be okay. And we get to the hospital and talking to the one nurse, and she goes, "When's your due date?" And we tell her 11/11. She goes, "Oh, that's my birthday." Stuff like that. And from that moment on, I had no worries throughout that pregnancy. I turned it over, put it in God's hands, and she's sitting in the living room right now eating some breakfast. So things work out. Even the darkest times of my life, looking back on it, it was where exactly I needed to be. I had to go through some things to get to the point where I'm at. So if you're in a dark place, know God uses everything to serve his purpose. So just, stay focused on God and allow him to lead you where he's going to lead you. We have to have trust in our Father. So I think that gives you a little bit of where I'm coming from. And then obviously after that, I dove headfirst into all this information. Um, a few read throughs of the Bible. And, I'm always jumping back to different books. And at work, I have 12 hours a day where I'm basically left by myself. So I can, go through a lot of material and try to at least one book a day to, be listening to that and listen to a lot of biblical studies, word studies, which is something that is very important. I believe that our Father preserved his word in the Greek language through the Septuagint and then the Greek New Testament. I don't think that was an accident. I think that's how he wanted his word to be preserved. So the Septuagint is the version of the Old Testament I try to stick with. The cross references. What's going on with my mic? Cross references. About 90% of them all go back to the Septuagint. If you're using the King James Bible, they do not match. Words are changed. So I personally don't really like the King James, and most of the Old Testament translations, just because they're all based off the Masoretic text. And if you go to our Rumble channel, I have an episode there with Pastor Eli, and we get into the Masoretic corruptions. So definitely check those out. If you have any if you have anybody that you listen to that you think I could learn something from, it'd be great to hear from you guys. I'm always trying to expand my knowledge, and something we have to be good at is not to get lost in our own beliefs. We have to keep our mind open to the possibility of being wrong, or just new information, or you're never going to grow. So don't be afraid to look at new material, and use the individuals we have, like Pastor Charles, Pastor Eli James, people that have been in this movement for a long time that have so much to offer. And especially as young guys, sometimes we can get a little egotistical and a little big headed. and um, we have to be mindful to humble ourselves and not get in that mindset, because especially when I was, going down the atheism route, I, uh, my head couldn't fit into this room, and we just got to be careful doing that. And that's the one thing about our Anglo-Israel message is there's no extra book we got to read. There's no leader that we follow. It's it's scripture. That's what we follow. And it's amazing to continually um, find proof after proof that shows that this message is the correct message, and that our people are the remnant. We are the saints. The book was written, by us, to us, for us. And we're really failing right now representing our Father, plain and simple. We aren't doing a very good job. And we need to do better, be better. But things don't change overnight. And one of the things I like to say is it don't matter whether looking at life as a field. It don't matter if you've moved 20 yards, an inch, a millimeter. It don't matter. If you're moving forward each and every day, no matter how small or how big, that day is a success. And especially as men and as Christian men, we need to take, how do I put this? We do not need to castrate ourselves to be Christians. We need to be strong men. We don't let people walk over us. We don't let people walk over others. We stand for what we believe in. We don't break. We are the protectors. We are the warriors. We are, you know, we are all these things rolled into one. And we should constantly be trying to, improve our knowledge, improve our strength. Because a time is going to come in the near future where our people are going to need strong men, or we're going to get walked over. So, not only should we be expanding our mental capacity, but we need to build our bodies and just be overall stronger. It's my personal opinion. The men of the Bible weren't weak men. They weren't Nick Fuentes. We need to be strong and carry Jesus's word forward. Okay, so I think that will do it for today. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about where I'm coming from and what this ministry and podcast is going to be, and what it is. And give me a like, subscribe. I'm on Gab if you guys want to go over there and follow me. I do have a Facebook page, but I get dings, and it's just a pain in the butt to do anything on Facebook, really. So I don't mess around with that too much, but I stay on Gab. I'm not very active on it, and try to limit really what social media I'm posting to, and have really been trying to limit my time on, these apps. And that's something else. We need the technology to share our message and trying to network with each other, but we also need time in the real world. And the more time we could pull away from the screen, the better. And that goes for us along with our children, because our children watch us. And if we're constantly on the screen, they're going to constantly be on the screen. So, your children pay way closer attention to you than a lot of people think. So be an example to them. If they're seeing you read the Bible and seeing you dedicate your life to Christ, there's a better chance that they're going to do it. So, all right. Have a great day. Enjoy your family. And at least around here, we have it's a little chilly, but it's a beautiful day. Get outside, get some sun. And I will I post videos on Friday or Saturday. I work, you know, most of the time Monday through Thursday, but we've been working a lot of Fridays. So usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday is when you'll see new videos. So uh, I hope you guys have a great day. Praise Jesus, and thanks for tuning in. All right. Let me play this. All right.